And then Patrick Henry says, I smell a rat. And he says, I'm not going for this Constitution. It allows too much power to the central government, and unless in Rhode Island and Virginia and North Carolina and New York all said, we're not going with the Constitution unless it has a Bill of Rights. And they said, okay, you radicals, what's the matter with you guys? And so they said, okay, let's come up with the untouchables that government can never touch. Let's come up with the rules, with the laws, with the principles that government cannot absolutely ever touch, violate, or encroach upon. And you know how many they came up with? Remember, they just got in a fight with King George III, just won this war, and they were trying to make sure that this could never happen again. They came up with 189. They dwindled them down to 12, and the states ratified 10. And of course, the first ones, freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the right to peaceably assemble, and to file grievances against government. And then the next one, to secure those freedoms, the Second Amendment. And you know that actually a lot of government schools today teach that the Second Amendment was put in by our founding fathers to guarantee the right of soldiers to keep and bear arms. That's the absolute most absurd thing. Isn't that just a little bit redundant? Yeah, let's take time out, guys, now. And we want to guarantee the right of our army and soldiers to keep and bear arms. Maybe they knew Clinton was not going to let them have arms. Yeah. Crazy, absolutely crazy. That isn't what it was about at all. And we're going to get into some of these others, but it talks about the Commerce Clause and how the federal government has gone way outside the Commerce Clause. And it talks about the Supremacy Clause. And that the only thing is supreme is laws made in pursuance of the Constitution. It does not say the federal government is supreme. Far from it. You think they said, oh yeah, the states are going to get together, we're going to start a supreme central government and let it be just as powerful as the one that we just fought a war to stop. Doesn't make sense, does it? Because it wasn't the truth and it didn't happen that way at all. And so then it talks about the EPA in the 1970s being unconstitutional. The EPA, yeah. This is what let's go, indeed, yeah, that's good. And then finally, and we're going to get into some of these others, but what made this all worthwhile was one sentence that I saw, and I keep reading this decision all the time. One sentence, my dear friends, my brothers and sisters in this great country of ours. Let me tell you that when I studied and researched this case over and over, one sentence towards the end just hit me so hard, and it made all of it worthwhile. All the money, all the tears, losing my third election, everything else, all came to life, and I said, you know what? This was all worth it. And it said this, quote, "But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions." But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. End quote. Pretty powerful. Janet Reno issued a memo to all sheriffs and chiefs of police to ignore this decision and just keep doing what you're doing because it was meaningless. Yeah. And all the Constitution is meaningless if we don't follow it. And that's what this is about. And you know what this is also about? Something you didn't add. That every bit of this fight is to be done peacefully. This is not any type of advocation of violent overthrow of our government. This is us standing firm, hand in hand, as fellow Americans, as brothers and sisters in America, in firm resolve that we will not back up one bit, that we will no longer compromise the principles of freedom that our country was founded for, and that we mean no harm to any other person on the face of the planet, but make no mistake, federal government, we are standing firm, and we will not compromise. to decide whose side they're on. And I believe they already made that commitment when they took their oath of office and they took the job to be the people's ultimate protector. They signed on. We need to ask them, will you stand against tyranny? Can you imagine any sheriff saying no? And we need to make sure that they're educated. We need to make sure they know and understand what we expect. But just because the state legislature or judges or the president or the United States Congress or anyone else slides away or absolutely tramples the United States Constitution, and just because they do that, please show me anywhere, any law or any moral obligation that we might have to go along. Where is it? We got to go along with the destruction of America because these other lying politicians do it? Where's that at? Of course not. Freedom is more important than arresting a drug dealer. Freedom is more important than anything else your sheriff could do. We're talking about saving our country. America is on her deathbed. We are watching. As America is dying right now, let's make no mistake here. America is dying. And our generation is watching her die. And she can be revived. It's called CPR. Constitutional Principle Resuscitation. And that's our device. And real briefly, where do we see, and he quoted it earlier when he was up here, but I want to reiterate, where do we see, and where can every sheriff and every public official see, what is government for? What is the purpose of government? You and I all know that it's about protecting rights. It's about protecting freedom. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. What a powerful statement. That we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable. You can't lien these rights. It's unalienable. Okay? And among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The next line is the kicker. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So why do we have sheriffs? Why do we have judges? Why do we have governors, state reps? Why do we have a president? Well, God only knows that one, huh? But anyway, from your dog catcher all the way down to the president. We have government officials is to secure these rights. If they're not doing that, they're not doing their job. And that's all that they were put here to do. It almost sounds religious, doesn't it? To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. And you know why it sounds religious? Because it is. And never at any time in our lives as Americans should we be putting our hand out to the federal government and say, please take care of us. That should scare you to death. Because you know why? They will. Yeah. And so one last little brief from Scalia in the Mack-McGee case that we won at the U.S. Supreme Court. He says this is his last order. This is the Supreme Court of the United States shaking their finger at the United States Congress and federal government. Quote, the federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the states' officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty. End quote.